Slept on Cinema is sponsored by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know someone who's struggling with shoe tying for any reason, Training Ties is the perfect solution.
Nothing to get fired up about.
The poor dragons, on screen not nearly enough as it is, stand no chance pitted against this kind of heavyweight ham.
Only slightly more alive than the silly 2000 Dungeons and Dragons.
Garners so much potential for a large, exciting universe, but is just a waste of acting, talent, special effects, and money.
Reign of Fire is the schoolyard bully who used to beat the crap out of you during breaks. It is big, loud, dumb, and never explains itself.
While the dragons come out blazing, the rest of the movie is blowing smoke.
Welcome to this week's episode of Slept on Cinema. I'm your host, Stan Steamer.
I'm Grove Street.
This week we are getting into the year 2002 classic, Reign of Fire.
Rotten premise. In present-day London, 12-year-old Quinn watches as his mother wakes an enormous fire-breathing beast from its centuries-long slumber. 20 years later, much of the world has been scarred by the beast and its offspring. As a fire chief, Quinn is responsible for warding off the beast and keeping a community alive as they eke out a meager existence. Into their midst comes a hotshot American, Van Zandt, who says he has a way to kill the beasts. Critics, 42%. Audience, 49%. Finally, this makes sense that the audience is ahead of the critics for one of our movies that's like this post-apocalyptic dragon, fantasy, thriller, drama. It makes sense that the audience would like this more than the critics.
It's about time. And I'm glad you went into this. I could tell you didn't know how to think about the genre here.
I have no idea.
And I had the same thing. And then it occurred to me, are dragon movies, is that just a genre? Is this just should there be in the movie store probably just one shelf, but just a shelf of dragon movies, and you don't need to then think about how it fits in?
I think that would be an amazing. If the video stores came back, I think a dragon shelf would be a pretty hot shelf. The fortunate part of this one, which we will get into maybe a little bit, is maybe not. Is this a dragon movie?
I mean, there are a lot of dragons in it, so
there are.
It's definitely. It's definitely a dragon movie. It may also be other types of movies, but 100% it is a dragon movie.
Yes, correct. I think it just takes, this is like the Christmas movie debate, right? Like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Yeah, anything that mentions Christmas is a Christmas movie. If there's a dragon in your movie, it's a dragon movie.
Yeah, so I think we could go, this is a dragon thriller, post-apocalyptic, sci-fi drama.
And it does great in all of those areas. I had a great time
with some moments of levity as well.
I had a hard time taking notes with this because I kept getting wrapped up in the movie, and I would just minutes would go by, and I just hadn't written anything down. I watched it a few times, and I just really, really enjoyed this movie.
You could also say it's a character study, because I feel like the characters are what drive almost more than the plot. It's a movie about the people in the movie.
Yeah, and I think Bale does a good job of leading that parade, sort of. It was like making it about the characters, and he's taking this movie very seriously, and I'm glad he did.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, that's the best part. Everyone takes it seriously.
Yes.
Phenomenal time. All right, let's get into a little bit of the background. And again, this is one of these films that I don't think you need a whole lot of background. Almost the less you know, the better. But came out July 12, 2002. Opening weekend came in third. Made just over $15.5 million. So number one was the second week of Men in Black 2. That movie, Will Smith, you can totally it's a sequel of one of the greatest, most successful movies with a movie star of that era. No one was going to knock down Men in Black 2. That's just a juggernaut. Number two, though, I think if you're going to redo this, really, Reign of Fire should have knocked this one out. So Road to Perdition was the number two movie that weekend.
Movie is terrible.
So, and it was a tough weekend to come out because there were the top three of the top four were opening weekends, which are obviously the toughest to crack. So, number one, you had Men in Black 2. It's second week. No one's going to do anything there. But then Road to Perdition opening weekend. Then we get Reign of Fire. And then fourth, Halloween Resurrection. So
all right.
You could have had a pretty solid 3 out of 4 there. I mean, Road to Perdition's obviously the odd man out, but the rest of those you could have, a great afternoon or an early evening there by just bouncing around those three films.
Absolutely. I bet Road to Perdition is a critic's much higher than the audience score.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen it. I don't even really remember what it is, but it sounds terrible.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So just a little on this, because again, as we talked about, so much of this is about the characters in the film, and McConaughey is, I think, this is one of the greatest roles of all time. I heard a little bit about his preparation for this role and to get in the mindset of this, and just to go in a little bit because it's fantastic. So clearly, he was very, very excited about this role, and the director talked a little bit about getting some pressure to fill this role with a true ironclad movie star at the time, which Matthew McConaughey was not at this point in time in his career. So that he got some pressure to cast like Schwarzenegger, Stallone. It's sort of this iconic American hero kind of character. And the director pushed back pretty hard on that and went with McConaughey. And I think McConaughey absolutely rewarded him with that choice. But he wanted to commit to it so intensely that he decided to go out to Texas for 2 months, basically by himself, to just prep himself for this role.
Which is, I think, how McConaughey prepares for every movie to start already. Just go to Texas.
Yeah, he's always on a ranch in Texas. I'm pretty sure that's like a prerequisite. Like, does the role fit? Can I go to Texas for 2 months? Yes. All right, sign me up. So here was his plan. He goes out to his brother's ranch in Texas. He goes, I'm going to drink a double shot of tequila every morning before getting out of bed, so that I will have the fire of the dragon in my mouth. I'm going to run 5 miles barefoot every day. And I'm going to stand on the edge of a barn, the barn roof, which is 40 feet off the ground every day. And then every night, he's going to tackle sleeping cows to just toughen himself up. So apparently by the 6th day, he couldn't take tequila shots anymore. He was just gagging at even, the sight of the bottle. Gave that up on the 7th day. On the 9th day, ended up getting a concussion because one of the cows headbutted him that he was trying to tackle. So none of this lasted, but the idea was there. The effort was there.
Yeah, his commitment was unquestionable for sure. And I also heard that he made everyone call him the character's name on set.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was 100% in, and it shows. So that's all I got for the background. I really don't think you need anything more than that. But a fun little thing to just understand about where McConaughey, the actor, was coming from when he steps into the shoes of the iconic.
He is the second character in this. Like, this is clearly Christian Bale's movie, and he's in the majority of scenes, and it's about his story arc and everything. But man, McConaughey comes on so strong, and the movie completely changes once his tank or whatever rolls up to the screen. It's such a cool performance from him too, because you don't usually see him like you do in this movie. He's usually like the laid back, all right kind of guy. To have him be like this muscle bound alpha male was pretty cool. But I don't want to ruin too much. So unless you have any more, I want to get to bolos.
Yeah, let's jump into the bolos.
I'll go first here. Be on the lookout for a Star Wars reenactment.
Love that move too. It's like the kids don't know anything. Sure, we made this up.
Yeah, I invented Lion King too.
I'm going to say bolo muscles. Hard to miss all the muscles here.
Very hard. Lots of sleeve monsters. Bolo nighttime prayers or like nighttime mantra? I'm not quite sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'll accept both. I'm going to say bolo, and this is a big one, but bolo fire.
Bolo learning how dragons breathe fire.
Yep. It's an informative movie as well.
Very.
And this is maybe the opposite end of the animal spectrum, but bolo pigeons.
Bolo McConaughey ordering people around.
A lot of that. I'm going to say bolo Big Ben.
Oh, makes an appearance?
Makes an appearance, and not its finest showing. It has seen some things.
Okay, yep. Bolo glares.
Ooh. Some piercing glares. And I'll follow that up with bolo dragon vision.
Oh, that was my next one. So good. The dragon vision's awesome. Bolo water in a flask.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say bolo apples. kind of similar to water, like simple things that become so important.
Yep, it really is. These sort of like post-apocalyptic movies always have like the things you take for granted become the biggest things, in that sort of situation, as it did with apples. I'll go Bolo learning how the dinosaurs died.
Ooh, good one. I like that. I'm going to say, and this is now a dated reference, strangely enough, but Bolo Time Magazine.
Oh, that's good. Yep. I am out of Bolos.
All right, I'm just going to hit you with two more here. Bolo, a scene exceptionally reminiscent of the ending from Aliens.
Nice.
And this one only came up because I happened to pause the movie at a fortuitous time. Bolo, King Joffrey from Game of Thrones.
Oh, I heard he was in it, and I forgot to look for him.
Yep. Happened to press pause at just the right time, and I was like, "Oh wow, that is Joffrey!" And it's crazy because that actor Jack Gleason is also in The Dark Knight,
right? Yeah,
or Batman Begins. Maybe it's Batman
Begins. I think it was. Yeah.
Yep. So him and Christian Bale have a connection.
They have a connection. Drink to pair with the movie. What do you got?
So here's my drink to pair from the movie. You're going to go into the liquor store, and maybe this is easier if you're wearing a hat. Go into the liquor store with a hat on, and I want you to pull that brim all the way down. So you can't see, you're not looking at the top shelf. You're not looking at the middle shelf. I want you only to be able to see the absolute bottom shelf. I want you to get that clear plastic container. And I don't care what's in it as long as it's clear and exceptionally cheap. And that's what you're drinking with this movie.
That's very good. I think it was Poland Springs back in the day. It was a different company, I would assume. But yeah, it was like $10 for the whole handle in college. So yeah, I think go as bottom shelf as you can.
Yes.
Perfect sense to drink fast so your throat doesn't burn, only your belly does.
Yep, exactly. That'd be perfect.
That's the perfect choice. I went a little crazy because I think I told you before I took the month off for Sober October, and my comeback drink was this drink that I made. After abstaining for October, so I made Flaming Dragon's Blood cocktail. I was just Googling a bunch of recipes that would align maybe with watching a dragon movie, and this was amazing. It's a thyme and raspberry daiquiri that I made, and it has a mixture for the dragon's blood that comes out very red. It's about you like raspberries and a few other things, and then you add that to a drink with white rum and a little pearl luster dust. If you're a baker, you might know what that is. And then a little lacing of some Bacardi 151 on top that you can light on fire so that it has a little flame to it before you serve it. So I made that for my wife and her friend who was over, and it went over very, very well. So I think yours is the better drink for the movie, but this drink was delicious. The Flaming Dragon.
I would much rather drink your drink. we get two ends of the drink spectrum. We got one that 30 people could drink for $10, and then one that has luster dust.
Yeah, right, exactly. This was a ton of fun, so I'm sure everyone will have a good time watching this, and we'll see you on the other side.
Enjoy.
A creature has been awakened that has lain dormant for millions of years. A species older than the dinosaurs and more terrifying than anything we could have imagined.
How did they go from 1 to 1 million in less than a year?
Highly evolved.
They have great vision in the day. They have even better vision at night.
Extremely intelligent.
He's playing hide and seek.
More like cat and mouse.
Unbelievably powerful.
2 glands in the mouth secrete separate chemicals.
Combining exhalation, natural napalm.
Good luck.
Now one will protect them.
We have to hang on, work together.
And one will lead them.
There's nothing magical about it. They're made of flesh and blood. You take out their heart, you bring down the beast.
We found out where they started. We're going to London.
This summer,
Vertical one up.
the plan is set.
1,600 yards, closing fast.
The arsenal has been assembled.
Get ready to rock and roll.
each other!
And they've got one chance to take back their world. Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale. Reign of Fire.
Slept on Cinema is brought to you by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know anyone who's struggling with shoe tying, Training Ties is the perfect solution. Or if you know anyone who just doesn't like tying their shoes, Training Ties keeps shoes tied all day long. Say no to Velcro and yes to independence with Training Ties.
Welcome back. That was awesome.
That was so much fun. I guess it happens a lot with these movies, but I just enjoyed watching it a few times. It was just a really, really easy to watch. And like I said before, I tried to take notes with this movie and I just ended up getting caught up in the movie, and that's a good sign because it was a really fun movie to watch. It's that kind
of film. It's just everyone goes all out. Every single actor is so into it. I feel like even the dragons are into this movie. It's just everyone is, and as a movie watcher, you can't help but get sucked in.
Yeah, there's no camp to this. It could easily have a little bit of that with, there's dragons around. So it's easy to have this like fantasy campy element to it. And everyone's just like, no, that's not, dragons are here, but there's a lot of stuff that we're going over that's very serious. And the way everyone played the roles, I thought was awesome.
I think that's exactly right. That's what makes this movie so good, is that everyone takes their role incredibly seriously. And sometimes in these sort of dragon genre movies, that's just not the case.
Right, and you can see why. It's not like these guys were nobodies with Christian Bale and McConaughey when this movie came out, but you can see why they're still somebodies today, 20 years later.
Right.
Because they have that work ethic and they're just awesome in every role you put them in.
Yep.
Want to get to the draft?
Let's do it.
All right, you got first pick.
So I am so torn here. I'm so torn, but I feel like if I don't take him here, I'm not going to get it on the turn. I got to take McConaughey / the Van Zandt character. I know that it was the supporting character in this movie, but he is so electric. The moment he shows up, as you say, he shows up on screen in a tank. Like he's
not just that, like he pops out of the top of the tank and he's sitting there with the cigar and he has the sleeves off and he's just some other version of McConaughey we're not used to seeing.
It's amazing. He popped out of that tank and I was like, holy shit, things just got real in this movie. He pops out. He's so jacked. Like I didn't realize McConaughey could get that jacked. Everyone's jacked in this movie, but he's taken it to another level. He's got the tattoos. He's got the shaved head. He's just got this
dragon
aura. Oh, yeah, he's got the dragon tooth around his neck. It's just, he's got everything going. He's got this attitude that is just unbelievable. And it's an amazing role. You got the military, he gets to wear the flag, but it's not like a war in a war film. This is saving the human race. I could see someone presenting this role to somebody and just be like, this is going to be the most fun role ever to play. He's so intense. He's so into it. He's a badass. He's a dragon slayer.
I love that part when Christian Bale is questioning him on you had a aircraft and you get something in the sky. That's their sky, and he's like, no, that's your sky. That's that's my sky. They're just renting it. It was such a badass view that he had, and the movie completely changed once he became on screen for the better.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is Christian Bale's movie, but McConaughey was just he's the character that I think in this movie that is indelible, that I will remember from this film.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge choice. Great choice. I'm gonna go with the dragons in this one.
Yep. That's the other obvious pick.
I cannot believe, I guess because of Game of Thrones and now the new reboot of that, we've been a little more accustomed to seeing dragons on screen, and it's still not as good as this. This was really good. Yeah. I thought it would look really fake, going back to 2000 or 2002, I think this was made, and thinking that there's going to be CGI dragons. but they were awesome.
I feel like they did a really good job of when it was close in, like when he's in the cave initially touching the sort of dragon skin, it was super close. So you didn't see the whole thing, but you got the texture. And then when you did see the whole dragon, it was sort of at a distance or in the sky. So you didn't have to worry about, like, they managed the fact that they didn't have perfect CGI at the time really well.
Really well. And they're not on screen for very much. I think it's like 6 or 7 minutes total of screen time for the dragons. And they did a great, we've had this happen a few times, probably because we've done movies in the 90s and early 2000s where it's like a awesome mix of CGI and real stuff. So like you said, when they were in that cave and they were feeling around, that was real. And then the fire wasn't CGI. There was no CGI fire, really. It was, I forget the amount, but it was a ton of propane was used on this movie set because it was real fire that they were using.
Oh, yeah. And you can tell. I mean, you feel the heat watching it. Like, that's not After Effects.
Absolutely.
I also loved about the dragons that you see these dragons early in the movie and you're like, oh man, these are so cool. And then they hit you with the like mega dragon later on. It just keeps getting better and more intense. How could it get even better? I mean, it's just like
it's like dragon infighting, and there's also like tattered wings because the dragons have been through some stuff too. They're also starving. It's just a great attention to detail with the dragons in this movie.
Yeah, great pick. I mean, that's the obvious. I feel like you could flip back and forth between those as first overall 100 times.
Yep. My second pick, I really, really loved it. After the original, I mean, the opening scene, there was the montage with the newspapers and Christian Bale narrating and showing how the world has fallen apart in like the 20 years since. And he's going through saying like, you know, they tried to use their weapons, but it ended up killing more of us than them and destroyed our cities. It's very like Matrix-esque when Morpheus is talking about how we burnt the sky and just giving like the rundown of how we got to where we are. At this point, which I know, like I've taken film classes in high school and stuff, and they say how that's like a cheap way out. But that's not how it is for me. Like, I love that stuff. I love, just give me the I think we've done this before, but throw me the newspaper articles in a montage, some pictures, and I'll pause everyone and read all the articles. It's great.
Oh, yeah. I had this on my list also, and I was hoping it would still be around, but I knew based off of how you pick things that this had very little chance because I know how much you love movies that contain newspaper articles because you will pause them and read all the articles. And I totally agree. Okay, you could have spent 20 minutes going through this. We don't need that. That era is not what this movie's about. It's a crutch. It's an important crutch. Crutches exist for a reason. We don't want to have to spend all that time doing that. Let's just get through it. They did a great job. I totally understood where we were, and let's get to the important part.
Yeah, and it helps keep the movie basically an hour and a half, which is what this movie should be. Exactly.
So I thought a great pick. I loved that as well. Concise, to the point, gets everything across. It was just well done. Oof. My second pick, and I still got a lot on my list. It's tough to narrow down here, but I'm going to take the concept and the scenes of jumping out of helicopters to catch dragons. I thought the concept was amazing. It's just like totally badass. I'm going to jump out of this helicopter and catch dragons, and also just the way it was shot where they're going up into the clouds to escape the dragons and then jumping out and going through the clouds, not knowing where the dragon is. The whole scene was so exciting. I could watch that over and over and over again. It was just amazing.
Yeah, from start to finish. And he came in. The cool part was like he came in with the tooth around his neck. You're not quite sure if he's lying. Like, oh yeah, you're a dragon slayer, whatever. And then like a few minutes after he gets in there, there's the alert, and he's like, all right, let's go. Let's get everything set up. And then we see them in action trying to take down the dragons. And that's maybe not the best idea. I think they lose like 3 men to every one. Not a good ratio. It doesn't matter. The jumping out of the helicopter and going after the dragon, that whole scene was just amazing. Like you said, I could watch that over and over again. And it was perfect right after it came in with this huge buildup to see them in action taking down a dragon. And this is like a small... I mean, there's not many people left, you'd think, at this point, but this isn't a fighting community. This is a hiding community. It's in their prayers. It's in how they talk and how they act. They are afraid to go outside. They don't fight back. So to have this guy show up with his crew and then, within a few minutes of the, in movie time, they take down a dragon. It was so cool.
Amazing. It was amazing. The idea was cool. The way it came out across on screen was cool. It was just great.
I'm not going to pick this, but I'm just going to add on to your part here. But when they had like the tracking and they had the computer and they had the little dots following the people who were diving out of the helicopter, and it just shows the dot go into the mountain quietly.
Yep.
It's just that's crap. Amazing. Yeah, exactly. We all know what that meant. But it's they had done such a good job prior to that, where like that little dot on the screen going into nothing, you knew what that meant, and it meant someone died.
Yep. All right. My third pick here is probably the most chronologically sequenced picks I've ever had here. But I'm going to go with right after they catch that dragon and kill it, the Hendrix drop of "Let Me Stand Next to Your Fire" when they were all partying afterwards was just perfect. It's almost a little too on the nose, but just I thought
it's perfect.
Yep.
I had that to it. It's so great with I watch everything with subtitles on. So right when that came on, I heard it obviously, but then you see it and you're like, oh yeah, that's the perfect song. Why would you pick any other song besides that?
Yeah, it has the perfect vibe. It has the perfect feel, the perfect sort of aura to it. And then, of course, the actual lyrics are so on point.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, they nailed that.
Yeah.
Especially, and it's one of these movies that there's very little music in terms of pop music in it. And they did it wisely.
Yeah, it's more effects than music. My pick, right?
Yep.
I'm going to go with my third pick. I'm going to take Gerard Butler. Very nice. Like he came in, I didn't know he was in the movie. And I think it's before he became like Gerard Butler, pre-300, obviously.
Yeah, definitely pre-300.
And he's just like a little wiry guy, but he also does a great job of humanizing Christian Bale, because Christian Bale can come off as just like, are you even a person in there? Like, in the beginning of the movie, like, do you even have relationships? Or are you just always just sneering and brooding or whatever? And I thought Gerard Butler, he didn't have a ton of scenes, but he did a great job humanizing Christian Bale and just adding a little levity to the movie. I thought he was a great friend.
Yeah, he was great. Great accent. Great character. It's just he fit in the movie very well.
Yeah, a huge fan of him in that role. And I'm going to go deep cut for my sleeper pick here.
All right.
I don't know if you ever played this, but my sleeper cut has nothing to do with what was in the movie, but the video game that happened because of the movie. It was on PlayStation where I played it, Reign of Fire, and the video game was awesome. And you could play as a dragon, or you could play as a person. And both of the goals were to obviously like take over the dominant species on Earth. And it was just an awesome game. So if you had,
wow.
Yeah, it was on GameCube. It was that era. So
yeah, I'm going to have to check that out. I played a lot of GameCube in college, but I don't think I played that game. Which was more fun, the human or the dragon?
To start, it was the dragon, but then you're like, all right, I can't really do that much. You just fly around. It's the person. Yep. You can hop in vehicles and shoot down dragons. So yeah, it was a person.
That sounds awesome. I definitely need to check that out. All right, mine I feel like is a deep sleeper, but it is drawn from the movie. But this happens pretty early on, and it's when they're down in the tunnels right back in the year 2000, and it's the drilling crew clearly like about to knock off work or just having knocked off work, and they're chilling beers with a fire extinguisher. Which is such a pro move. I'm not sure I've ever seen it in any other movie, but there was a time I watched an episode of Mythbusters, the TV show, and they were trying to figure out what actually is the fastest way to cool down beers. And it was like, do you put it in the fridge? Do you put it in the freezer? Do you put it in a bucket with ice? Do you put it in a bucket with ice water? And they ran through this whole thing, and they found out that it's obviously not economical. But actually the fastest way to chill down a beer is with a fire extinguisher. They are incredibly cold, and that's science. So these people were down there looking to chill beers as fast as possible, and they did it the right way, and it's right there on screen.
That's incredibly resourceful and awesome. I love that it is actually the coldest, the best way to chill down, to cool down beers. And I'm also a little upset that, like, I just turned 40. Like, I can't be chilling beers with fire extinguishers now. But had I known this piece of information, I definitely would have tried this in my early 20s to see if it could be faster than putting in the freezer or ice and water, whatever. It feels like a missed opportunity now.
Yeah, now I feel like you have to wait until your fire extinguisher is about to expire. I think they have expiration dates. I'm not even sure. But if they do, once yours hits the expiration, then you can go and chill.
Yeah, and you would have to make that known. Like, you'd have to pretend that you didn't have it in mind and tell your wife, like, oh, wow, this fire extinguisher is almost done. Maybe I could try this idea out, as if you weren't, like, looking at it for
exactly
for months leading up to the expiration date.
Yeah, it's one of those things I feel like I'm going to go after this recording. I'm going to go look at my fire extinguisher, see what the expiration date is, put that in my calendar on my phone for however many years this is, and so I don't forget.
We might get some good husband points for replacing the fire extinguisher. In the house.
Totally. This is just safety. Is what they say.
Yeah, cooling down the beers is about safety. That's a great pick. I didn't even notice that. I saw the beers down there, but I didn't even realize that. So, what's our superlative for this week?
Favorite Van Zandt line. So we've obviously spent quite a bit of time on this character, as we should. But he has, I mean, the writing for this character is off the charts. And he has some of the greatest one-liners of any character that I can recall in any movie. So a lot to choose from here.
It's so many to choose from. I'll go first. I'm sure we both have multiple picks here, but if we had more money behind this is where I would play the line from the movie. But instead, read it. Don't be a fool. We can do this easy, or we can do this real easy. Was I thought?
Oh yeah,
awesome line. It's like, dude, we're getting into your castle. It's going to be easy for us to do that, or you could just let us in, which is really easy. But either way, we're coming in.
Yep, I 100% agree. That's also my pick. That is the choice. That is one of the greatest lines. Like, he said that, and like I was watching my wife, and she was just like, "Oh wow!" Like, this guy just showed up, and everything has changed. He made his presence known, and it's an amazing line. It's a line I wish to someday use. I don't know what the circumstance will be, but
I think it's going to have to be with our kids. Like, we kind of like jokingly threaten them with two things, and it's like, yeah, it's going to be easy for me or really easy for me to make.
Yep, exactly. So that's obviously the number one. I think my second choice was probably right after they slayed the dragon and everyone's having their party, and he walks in and he sort of has a very different perspective, clearly. And he just says, "Have your little soiree," and then leads into this monologue. But that line of "have your little soiree," it's 4 words, but it just cuts to the bone. Like, it clearly is like, let's have some perspective here. And he nails that. It obviously sets up his whole speech and really lets people know what the situation is. But I love that one too.
Yeah, I almost picked that scene as like a movie thing where they celebrate after something minor, or it was like in Moneyball where Jeremy Johnby is like having fun after a loss, and then someone has to come in and be like, "Hey, this isn't a time to celebrate." Like, I love the time when you tell other people, "Hey, this isn't that time because of these reasons, and then I'll make you feel bad for doing what you did." But it was awesome by him. But on their side on that scene, like, they had never killed the dragon before, so I get, they lost a couple people. They lose a few people every day. At least they killed the dragon. I also liked him when he said, "I lead, you follow," and then he reversed that later on. And he was like, "My bad. That was a bad idea."
Yep. Yeah. They follows it up with a "you lead, we follow."
Yeah.
Great pairing. Great pairing. You knew that was coming, and it was great when it finally hit. I liked "Run Like the Wind, Baby."
Yeah.
That was just a great line. That was obviously a huge, one of the biggest action sequences of the film, and it was just great.
Also, the magic hour. was perfect.
Oh yeah,
and having McConaughey say it the way he says it was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Some great lines. I mean, great character all around. Maybe I'd like to be that for Halloween some year, but it'll take me like 5 years of work with a personal trainer.
Yeah, that could be a lot of work at this point. Maybe just buy a muscle suit or draw.
Yeah, get some floaties.
One change to be a blockbuster. Mine's really quick. I could use a little more dragons. That's about it. I'm not sure
it's a dragon movie.
I'm also. I can't believe this wasn't more of a blockbuster. It seemed like it had all the makings of it, but like you said before, maybe they didn't give us so many dragons because they knew their limits. Which there's a lot to be said for that too. When they can sort of hide a little bit and just bring the dragons in here and there. Also, we've done 2 movies in a row that were really dark. I hope our next movie is some good lighting so I can see what's going on the screen.
Yeah, that's a good pick. And I think my guess is that it probably had something to do with the limitations of just what they had technologically available at that point in time. And so my one change, I think, really fits into that pretty well. And I think this movie just needed to come out 5 years later. I think you do the same movie. It has the 2 stars in it. They were movie stars, but they weren't like the top tier movie stars that they would become not that far into the future.
We heard it in one of the Rotten reviews where people were like, well, this is basically the end of these young startups' career from this movie.
Couldn't have been more wrong with that take.
Right.
But, after this, both of them went on to have these enormous, just absolutely huge, big-time movie star careers. And I think if this just hit at a little bit later in their careers, this is a huge movie that everybody is seeing. And 5 years later, you're getting a little bit more, like the CGI is vastly superior at that point, and which means you're getting more dragons as well. So I think this thing just a little ahead of its time.
Yeah, I feel like this movie should just have like a re-release into theaters right now. And be like Christian Bale, Matthew McConaughey, Joffrey.
And Gerard
Butler. Like, it would just let's pretend this didn't come out before and just toss it in the theaters now, and I feel like it would be a huge success.
Yeah, I mean, like when we were doing this movie for the podcast, and I was telling people about it, they were like, "Wait, this has Christian Bale and McConaughey and Gerard Butler. When did this movie come out?" It's like it just flew under the radar somehow, and I think it must have been like this came out, and then a couple years later, each of them had these giant, really successful movies that just kind of overshadowed this.
Yeah, this is like a little bit like one of our earlier movies, Anaconda, where it had like Jennifer Lopez, and Ice Cube, and Owen Wilson, and like all these big names that weren't big yet. And if you try to put it together now, it'd be like a massive budget to get them in the movie. And they, to this day, still hold up and could carry the movie. And like I just said, like it could be released again right now because they had such big careers after that. Spin-off ideas? What do you got?
So I think this is kind of just an obvious one for me because it sort of came up and they talked about it a lot in the movie. But give me that prequel with Van Zandt and his crew when they're first discovering how to kill dragons. Give me that scene in the cornfield at the magic hour.
Coffeeville, Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly. Show me how they figured that out. And then hit me with a bunch more of parachuting out of helicopters capturing dragons. Like I feel like there was so much there, and I'm sure some of it they just couldn't have done because of the technological limitations we just talked about. But give me that, and just give me an hour and a half of just chasing down dragons, and that's would be fantastic.
I had the same thing.
That's the obvious answer.
That's the obvious answer. The other ones, I guess, would be I'd like to see after they killed the male, like how they took down the rest of the dragons because they were just kind of like, it's been 3 months since we've seen one. I guess they're all dying now, but we don't really get it. What's going on? Like I would imagine the whole world has united to take down these dragons because they know that they're not reproducing anymore. And also, I wouldn't mind it would have been a prequel, but that was like, what was it, 12 or 20 years where like after Christian Bale's mom died and the whole world was taken over by dragons. Let's see some dragon takeover time.
What do you think of this? And this is just coming to me right now. So let me know what you think straight off the dome here. Crossover movie. Crossover. This happens a while later.
Yep.
It is a crossover. Jurassic Park, Reign of Fire. Someone tries to make like Dragon Island. They make them all females, but then of course they don't learn the lesson from the first Jurassic Park. They use the frog DNA, and you get some of that gender switching. Boom! All of a sudden you got dragons again.
Yeah, and it's like the dinos' revenge, because the dragons took them out.
Exactly.
Originally, and just destroyed the whole species. So now they have a chance. Humans brought back the dinos, and the dinos and humans can fight back against the dragons.
Mm-hmm. This
is amazing. I can't believe that just came to you. That's such a great idea.
And they keep pumping these Jurassic Parks out. How have they not done Jurassic Park dragons?
The next one could use it. I saw the last one on a plane. Perfect place to see it. All right, that was awesome. I'm so glad we did this movie. And our next movie,
I'm so glad you suggested it, because I hadn't seen this before. I was one of those people that was like, "Wait, what? This movie? Never heard of it." Next movie, we are doing Black Christmas, getting into the holiday spirit. Not the original, but one of the more recent remakes.
Not the original, not the first remake, but the second remake from 2019. Even though the first one qualifies, it's not quite as good as the second remake from, like, I think 2019. So yeah, Black Christmas will be our next one. Which I've seen. I say this all the time, but like when the pandemic started, we started watching horror movies every night, my wife and I, and now we watch Christmas horror movies every night in December. And this is one that we just, we tossed on after some awful low budget Christmas horror movies, and I think my wife and I were just like, wow, that was awesome. But it was out of context because we had seen so many bad movies. So I'm really, really excited to see it again for the podcast.
Yeah, I love this genre as well. I love the Christmas horror movie because it's a great. It's two classic genres coming together, and it's just their powers combined to make something just amazing every single time.
And there's nothing. Well, hopefully this doesn't step on toes on the next one, but I just love like horrified Christmas music. You just speed it up a little bit, and then all of a sudden, like Jingle Bells is terrifying.
There's so much to work with the whole season. It's great. I can't wait to do this one.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. Well, that was awesome, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, later.